Abandoned in the rain. The rain fell in heavy sheets across the empty highway, drumming against the pavement like 1,000 urgent fingers. Sarah Mitchell stood at the gas station, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other shielding her eyes as she watched the silver Porsche disappear into the grey distance. 8 months pregnant, wearing nothing but a thin white dress that clung to her skin. She felt the cold seep into her bones. The gas station was old and weathered, its red pumps standing like sentinels against the storm. Behind her, a small convenience store flickered with fluorescent light, offering the only warmth for miles. Sarah's long blonde hair hung in wet strands around her face as she slowly lowered herself to sit on the rain-slicked concrete. Too stunned to cry, too exhausted to move. It had started as a perfect weekend getaway. Marcus, her husband of 3 years, had insisted they take one last trip before the baby arrived. He had booked a luxury resort in the mountains, promising her spa treatments and room service, a chance to relax before their lives changed forever. Sarah had been hesitant, worried about traveling so late in her pregnancy, but Marcus had been persuasive. He always was. They had been driving for 2 hours when Sarah felt the first pangs of discomfort. Not contractions, she told herself, just the baby pressing against her bladder. Still, she asked Marcus to stop at the next gas station. He had sighed, that particular sigh she had learned to recognize over the years, the one that meant she was being inconvenient. The argument had started small, as these things always do. Marcus complained about the delay, about how they would miss their dinner reservation. Sarah, hormonal and uncomfortable, had snapped back. Words were exchanged, voices were raised. And then Marcus had said it, the words that would echo in her mind for the rest of her life. Maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe I never was. Before Sarah could respond, before she could even process what he meant, Marcus had gotten back in the car. She had been standing by the pump, reaching for her purse in the back seat, when she heard the engine roar to life. She barely had time to step back before the Porsche lurched forward, tires squealing against wet asphalt. Now, sitting in the rain, Sarah felt the baby kick. Strong, insistent movements that reminded her she wasn't alone, that she had to keep going, had to figure out what came next. She placed both hands on her belly, drawing strength from the life growing inside her. The convenience store door opened with a jingle of bells. An elderly woman stepped out, her grey hair pulled back in a neat bun. Concern etched across her weathered face. She carried a large umbrella and a folded blanket. "Child, you can't sit out here in this condition," the woman said, her voice warm and firm, like a grandmother scolding a beloved grandchild. "Come inside. Let's get you dry." Sarah looked up, blinking rain from her eyes. The woman's face was kind, her brown eyes full of genuine worry. Something inside Sarah broke then, all the strength she had been holding on to crumbling like sand. Tears mixed with rain as she nodded, accepting the woman's offered hand. Inside the store, the warmth was overwhelming. The woman, who introduced herself as Margaret, wrapped the blanket around Sarah's shoulders and guided her to a small office in the back. There was a worn couch, a space heater, and shelves lined with inventory and paperwork. "My husband owns this place," Margaret explained, plugging in the heater and adjusting it towards Sarah. "Been here 37 years. You see a lot working at a gas station on a lonely highway. But I've never seen anything quite like this." Sarah tried to explain, but the words came out in broken fragments. Margaret listened patiently, nodding, never interrupting. When Sarah finally fell silent, exhausted from the telling, Margaret disappeared into the front of the store. She returned with hot tea, a sandwich, and a phone. "First you eat," Margaret said. "Then we figure out what to do next." As Sarah ate, Margaret made calls. Sarah heard her talking to someone named Frank, then someone else, her voice low and reassuring. The baby kicked again, and Sarah wondered what kind of world she was bringing this child into, what kind of father would abandon his family at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. An hour passed. Sarah dozed on the couch, warm for the first time since Marcus had driven away. She dreamed of her mother, who had passed away 2 years earlier, who would have known exactly what to say, exactly how to make this hurt less. She woke to voices in the front of the store. Margaret was there, and another voice, younger, male. Sarah's heart jumped, foolishly hoping it was Marcus, come back to apologize, to explain that it had all been a terrible mistake. But when she walked to the front, leaning heavily against the doorframe, she saw a police officer standing at the counter. He was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a badge that read Officer Davis. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said gently. "Margaret called us. We've been trying to reach your husband. His phone goes straight to voicemail." Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "The resort called back," Officer Davis continued. "Mr. Mitchell checked in 2 hours ago, alone. He told the front desk his wife couldn't make the trip." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Marcus hadn't just left her in a moment of anger. He'd planned to arrive without her, had already crafted his story, had already moved on with his weekend as if she didn't exist. "What do you want to do?" Officer Davis asked. "We can take you home, to a hospital, wherever you need to go." Sarah looked down at her belly, at the life she and Marcus had created together. She thought about the 3 years of marriage, the small moments of joy mixed with growing stretches of loneliness, the way Marcus had slowly pulled away as her pregnancy progressed. She thought about all the excuses she had made, all the warning signs she had ignored. "I want to go to my sister's house," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she expected. "In Portland. She's been asking me to visit." Officer Davis nodded. "I'll drive you myself. It's about an hour from here." As they prepared to leave, Margaret pressed something into Sarah's hand. It was a business card with a phone number written on the back in careful script. "That's my daughter," Margaret said. "She's a lawyer, specializes in family law. You call her when you're ready." Sarah hugged the older woman, feeling tears well up again, but different tears this time. Not helpless tears, but grateful ones. The drive to Portland was quiet. Officer Davis played soft music on the radio and didn't push her to talk. Sarah watched the rain continue to fall, watched the dark trees blur past the window. She thought about the future, about raising a child alone, about rebuilding a life she thought was already built. When they pulled up to her sister's apartment, Sarah saw the lights on inside, warm and welcoming. Her sister Emma burst out the front door before they even parked, running through the rain with an umbrella, her face a mixture of worry and fierce protectiveness. As Sarah stepped out of the patrol car, Emma wrapped her arms around her, careful of her pregnant belly. "I've got you," Emma whispered. "You're safe now. We're going to be okay." And standing there in her sister's arms, rain falling around them, Sarah believed it. Not because the hurt was gone, or because the future was clear, but because she realized something important. Marcus hadn't left her with nothing at the gas station. He had left her with a choice, and she was choosing herself. She was choosing her baby. She was choosing to be stronger than the man who had driven away. Inside Emma's apartment, Sarah finally allowed herself to rest. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and difficult conversations, decisions about divorce and custody, the painful work of untangling a life. But tonight, she was warm and safe, surrounded by love that didn't demand perfection or punish vulnerability. The baby kicked again, strong and sure, and Sarah smiled through her tears. "We're going to be just fine," she whispered, and meant it.